Hey, new patient group and Right Chat Nation, welcome inside the broadcast booth. Brian right here, and welcome into season number 5, episode number 7, episode number 78 overall. Boy, oh boy, it seems like, it's funny how time sometimes can just rush by, and other times it's just as slow as molasses. It seems like this could easily be episode number 300, and at the same time, it's amazing it's already episode 78. So time could just be a strange thing. But welcome in, everybody. Hope your life is good. Hope your business is good. Hope everything is going great on your side of things. Got a good one for you today. We're going to be talking about something that, if you ask me what are the top 3 reasons New Patient Group exists, this is, in other companies that I have as well, but mainly New Patient Group, I would say this is without doubt one of the top 3, maybe even number 1, but definitely within the top 3. And we're going to be talking about the number 1 success trait of billionaires, so the most famous entrepreneurs in the world. What is the number 1 thing they have in common that makes them so successful? We're going to talk about that, and then we're going to tie that into the real reason price shoppers exist and why new patient no-shows are on the rise as well. We're going to tie that in today, and I think it's going to open up some eyes. New patient group clients out there, not worried about you. Your mindset is already there. This is always a good refresher to make sure the mindset stays there. Those of you, this may be the first podcast you've listened to, maybe you haven't had it, you haven't heard it before, maybe you're just a listener, you're not a client. This is intended to ruffle some feathers today because it's going to be very, very straightforward. And that's what we do here. It's what I encourage all of you to do out there is to be innovative, ruffle some feathers with your ideas. The reality, what we're going to talk about today, it's true. It may be hard to hear, but if you buy into what I'm going to be talking about today, there's no words can describe what it can do for your practice, your business, and inevitably your life. Looking forward to a great one. After we get through the intro, going to give you some company updates, a couple really cool new things that we're doing. I'm going to give some podcast discount codes to those so you can get signed up. And then we'll start rolling in. Hope everything's good out there, and let's fire up the music.
A practice on almost every corner, and the modern-day consumer viewing you as a commodity. So why is it the best time in history to own a practice? The answers are all right here. Welcome to Season 5 of the New Patient Group audio experience, a business, marketing, and life coaching podcast dedicated to helping doctors dominate the new economy. And now your host, he's the founder and CEO of New Patient Group, managing partner of Right Chat, and a trusted motivational speaker for the finest companies in the world, Brian Wright.
Hey everybody, welcome in. Shout out if you're watching on our YouTube station. Hey there everybody. Hope you're doing good out there. But I want to give a shout out, and I'm sporting here. I'm gonna look into the screen really quick. There you go. Hey everybody, everybody. Sporting the OrthoFi hat today. So shout out, all the people I work closely with OrthoFi, or I'm just close with. Jamie Reynolds, Brian Lewis, Oliver, Scott Annabelle, who shout out to Scott, his wife Christine West, a loyal New Patient Group family member. Shout out to all of you. A very big believer in OrthoFi. One of the things that I am a believer in, and I'm glad that I've stuck with it, is I get offered to speak for quite a few companies out there that I just don't believe in. They're not necessarily, it doesn't mean that they're a bad company or anything like that. It's just I have a personal belief system that if I'm going to speak for you, I want to be passionate about it. And OrthoFi, the more I've learned over the years being a speaker for them, the more I see the New Patient Group clients utilize their tools effectively. It's amazing to see the difference in the reduction of the amount of people you need, the increase in starts, whether it be same-day starts, an increase in just, hey, let me think about it, and they go home and sign because of the ease of that. And honestly, just all the organizational tools that they have that are digital, I'm a big believer in them. We're working on, so shout out all the OrthoFi people. We are working on an all-day workshop that we're going to be doing around the country. Don't know exactly what that looks like yet. They're in the planning phases. We're going to be talking about that, I'm sure soon, but I know it's going to help a lot of people out there. So shout out to the OrthoFi people. A couple of quick things. So if you go check out, we have a brand new website that they're still making tweaks. There's a few things that I'm not quite happy with yet, but the new site is live, and it's the first time in 10 years since having New Patient Group that I don't have anxiety about it. And it's kind of the new Patient Group, if you will, a very new message, new offerings. One of the things you'll see on there is a lot of easier ways to work with us. We have our private client. We always will have our private client. But sometimes people need an easier way to work with you, and that's in any industry. Sometimes you just want a little taste of the drink, if you will, a little bite of the food, just to see if you like it, just to see if you want to dive in more. And that's exactly what we have redone our website and offered a lot of additional services that go beyond our private client for people that are just, you're interested. You've been a podcast listener a long time, but the timing yet is just not right for the private client. Well, the big thing about the website and the new offerings is that changes, and it's really going to give you a great way, a much lower investment to test the waters, to work with us and have us work with your practice and help your practice in a multitude of ways without that long-term private client commitment. And there's a couple things. We have our on-demand memberships now, and that gives you access to, we have about 600 hours right now, and we're always adding new things of on-demand video content. And that's placed into our office automation platform. We give you specific access to certain courses. We drip them to you. And then we set up a private Slack channel with your practice to where you can still interact virtually with me, Coach Eric, all of our other great coaches as well. So you get some virtual coaching. It's a great service, a great way to start with us. And then also we have these virtual boot camps. And the virtual boot camps coming up are also a fabulous way to work with us. And we have the first one launching in August. Coach Eric is going to be delivering that one. It's all around the TC exam room, sales, exam room innovation. It's a fantastic course that you'll also get our clear aligner and exam room innovation on-demand course for free. You'll get to keep that for life as part of your investment in that boot camp. Coach Eric comes with enormous sales background. Johnson & Johnson sales trained, 4-time President's Club winner with Align Technology, makers of Invisalign. And all of you out there listening, you should want to get your TCs trained with real sales fundamentals. And I say real, I'm talking from outside of your world that still very much can apply to your world. And that one you can go right on our site. It's on the live sessions page. And just scroll down and see boot camps. You can buy that right online. Use podcast 20. That discount when you're checking out is going to give you 20% off of the boot camp investment. We're only allowing probably 4 to 6 practices on these boot camps. We want to keep them somewhat private. Now, if you're a private client and you're a Platinum On Demand member, you will be receiving access to these boot camps for free. The next boot camp that we're doing will be in September. I'm going to be the coach there, and that one's going to be more doctor, business owner, leadership team delivered on the time efficiency strategies of billionaires. It's going to be really cool because we're going to tie all these successful entrepreneurs and their time management skills and how they multiply themselves, if you will, how they reduce the headaches by managing their time in a very unique way compared to the rest of business owners, just the rest of people in general. And that one's going to be really cool. And be delivering that in in September. And these boot camps are a series of 3 days, okay? So you'll be able to pick your Fridays, but it's 3 Fridays usually, not always. I think mine may be on Thursdays. You'll see the dates on the podcast. Same thing, use podcast 20, get the 20% discount. Great way for you to work with us, work with me personally, to be able to really help your practice. So again, podcast 20 on that, and I know you'll get a lot out of those. Go check those out. Today, we are diving into a topic that I am extremely passionate about. In many ways, it frustrates me from an entrepreneur perspective why more people can't see what I'm talking about today. And you have to be I have found a very forward-thinking, innovative mind to really grasp what I'm going to be talking about today and understand how much it can actually help you personally, both from just your life and you professionally, from business owners listening out there, entrepreneurs, doctors that obviously own their own business, the majority of our listeners out there, even the reps, out there, the practices, the businesses you're helping. What you have to understand is these are small businesses. And if you haven't owned one before, we live in an entirely different planet than the corporate world. We have struggles that are constant. It's constant chaos inside our businesses. Constant. It doesn't end. The goal is how do you reduce it and how do you streamline them as much as possible to lower the stresses to a level where you can truly enjoy what you love doing inside your respective businesses. So this thought process, whether you own a business or not, is extremely important, because if you don't own one, like I said, this is still allows you to go in with a different way to view the businesses, because a lot of times if you work for corporations, the disconnect between the corporate world and the small business entrepreneur could not be greater. The two worlds could not be more different. And the more you learn the small business owner world, the more you're going to be able to go in and relate to them, be able to help them, etc. So I think this is very important today for you. We have a doctor, and I'm not going to bring her name up, that is in Houston. And Houston is our home market. That's where I founded this company a decade ago. And obviously we're into Canada, we're global. We have some overseas as clients, obviously a lot throughout the United States. But there's something about this lady that really hits home, and she's a listener. You're going to know I'm talking about you, but I'm going to save names because I don't like to lose. So I'm a big believer that second place is first loser. And when I first met her at a dental monitoring event in Houston, and then we got to know each other after that through a mutual acquaintance that's also a client, I started really getting frustrated with what she was dealing with. She's dealing with a lot of doctors, pedos, dentists, orthodontists that live in the 20 years ago range. They bash the virtual consultation. They bash, she uses dental monitoring. They bash that. And they actively not only bash that, they bash her in front of the patients and talk trash about it. It's an interesting industry how you all will throw each other under the bus the way a lot of orthos, a lot of dentists do. It's really interesting where, to me, it's like, okay, if you don't agree with it, why wouldn't you pick up the phone, call her, have a discussion, and work it out? That's not the way this industry works. I have found that out multiple times since being in it for the last decade. And I bring this up because one of the reasons she's getting bashed, like I said, is dental monitoring and the things these people are saying. And today's not about dental monitoring, but I'm going to tie this all in together. I'm looking forward to today because private clients, we have our hands on you. It's the relationship's great, that you're already there with your mindset. But these stories, we're always fighting mindset. Just because you're there today doesn't mean you're going to be there tomorrow. So I like where this is going to go today, even for the new patient group family members. Even more so, though, for the ones who aren't yet. And here's a lady that is significantly ahead of her time. Does the virtual consults, does them well, by the way. Uses dental monitoring to save people time, get better clinical results, by the way, which we'll talk about that here in just a second. Another misconception of DM. Like, there's no downfall. There's no negative to the consumer, to the patient at all. There's not one. If you're looking at it from an outsider's perspective, nothing. And yet, her image and her brand are being tarnished by a bunch of people that still wake up every day thinking that they can wake up, be a good clinician, do nothing else, and they're going to win. And obviously, and you could argue it's somewhat unfortunate, but those days are gone. And those days are gone because of commoditization and competition. And competition is such a good thing, because if there's no competition, this is a completely different podcast, what I'm referring to right now. But I still want to touch on it because it's all going to tie together. Competition is looked at, for whatever reason, as a bad thing. I love competition, and I look at it very, very differently than most, which is what I'm going to teach a little bit today. But competition forces you to get better or you die. And that is always better for the end user. If United Airlines was the only airline all of us had to choose, we'd be screwed. It'd be $5,000 a ticket. Why? Well, because they could care less. And on the surface, you may be sitting there as a dentist or an orthodontist or a whatever going, well, Brian, geez, if I was the only practice in town, that would be fantastic. And I get the thought process. If we're the only new patient group is the only business and life coach and employee training company on the planet, yeah, it'd be awesome. We'd jack up our prices. We wouldn't have to. But the problem with that is, see, if you're the only practice in town, you have no incentive to get better. None. Clinically or non-clinically. If we're the only practice around, or I'm sorry, the only company around doing what we do, we have no incentive to put in the hours upon hours that we do behind the scenes that I think a lot of times is even lost even with our clients because they don't know how hard we're working to constantly find new ideas, constantly innovate, constantly challenge ourselves to be better for all of you. You want a competitive environment because it forces people to innovate. It forces people to be competitive with their prices. It forces people to improve themselves. And in this case, in the orthodontic world, it forces people to not only improve themselves clinically, but improve themselves in a whole other world that the patient can actually relate to. And those are the non-clinical things we talk so much about as a company and on this podcast. And as you innovate and as you come up with these ideas, things like dental monitoring come about. And it's a perfect example. Dental monitoring most likely doesn't exist if there's no competition, because there wouldn't be a reason for somebody to go out and be innovative and create something that stirs the pot. And I'm a big believer that if you're not pissing people off, it just means your ideas aren't good enough. I've said that for years, that there's countless amounts of industries where somebody comes into the industry with this innovative product, service, whatever it may be, that's absolutely awesome. It's great for the consumer. And the only people that don't like it are the people that are inside the industry. And let me give you a couple examples. There are countless examples. If you look at industry after industry, the most disruptive products, the most disruptive services come from somebody or a group of people that had little to no prior experience within that particular industry. Perfect example, Tesla. Elon Musk isn't a car guy. And Tesla isn't a car company. They're a tech company. Part of what they do is they make cars. And Elon Musk didn't come from the automobile industry. He comes from outside that world. And with his own unique set of lenses, looking at their world very differently than the people within, all of these ideas were born. And I don't know how many people know this, but there were countless amounts of lawsuits by the automobile industry attacking Tesla, saying it's unfair, all this crap. What's translating is that's not fair. You had the idea before us, and that's not fair that you're making us change. And countless amounts of, bad press and lawsuits and things like that. None of them valid. None of them have come true, if you will. But that was the response. But the point is you have somebody that's coming from outside of the automobile world looking at it and going, hey, this can be better. We're going to disrupt this baby, and we're going to transform the whole entire industry. You take Uber, another one's tech company. They still struggle to make money, which is amazing, but they still very much year after year struggle to be profitable. But it wasn't the taxi cab industry that woke up and said, you know what, we need to innovate, we need to change, we need to do better. Let's think of something that's the next generation of the taxi cab world. No. Why? Because there was no competition. That's one reason. There's others, but that's one. There was no incentive for them to invest in the future and change the game. None whatsoever. And then Uber comes along. Not taxi cab people. They weren't in the industry, let's drive people around for convenience people. They were tech people, serial entrepreneurs that would look at industries and go, why? What are you doing? Which is exactly what Elon Musk does with his companies. He'll look at an industry and go, what? Why? What are you doing? Same thing with Uber, and the taxi cab response was to badmouth Uber, file, and to this day, they still have countless amounts of lawsuits. Well, it's not fair that you can pick up in our spot at the airport and blah, blah, blah. That's their response. Not the best friend of the mirror and saying, hey, we had 2 decades, whatever it's been now, to get off our butt and actually do something to innovate and make sure that nobody creeps along when we're not looking. And the next thing you know, we have happened to us like an Uber situation. And that's a message, this is totally off the cuff what I'm about to say, but that's a message to all of you out there that you think are doing really well. If you're not continually pushing yourself to do even better and change and innovate, somebody comes along when you're not looking and knocks you off this pedestal. I see it time and time again in every industry out there. You look at Richard Branson, famous entrepreneur. He has no airline experience. He has no, I love people who are like, well, you're not a dentist. You can't help us grow. I love this mentality of inside the healthcare industry, which where I'm going, and I'm going to drive all this home. You know, Richard Branson wasn't a pilot. He wasn't an airline industry guy. Not at all. But he's an entrepreneur from outside those worlds, again, or outside that world, looking at it through a very unique set of lenses, going, what the hell are you people doing? It can be better than this. He launches Virgin Atlantic, and the whole airline, from the time you call to the time you show up to the time you walk on the plane, everything is completely different, especially for those of us who have to fly the crappy domestic airlines. Because the hospitality and the experience, especially for the ones that live on airplanes, it's gone. You know, and their MBAs are up there looking at, oh, hey, Joe, we're saving money. We cut this, we cut that. We're not doing this. We took power away from this. I've got to take a power away story podcast for the United Airlines 1K members that we've got. Who knows? It could be a few seasons from now. It could be tomorrow, whatever. But it's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. I can see the MBAs going, we're saving money. Meanwhile, the customers out there going, screw you, I'm not flying you anymore. So the experience on paper, the lack thereof, saves you money. Meanwhile, the customer leaves. But you can't, again, it's another one of those things that you can't put your finger on. You can't tie the customer leaving to the thing you took away. Hence, being an entrepreneur, owning a business, and thinking and looking at stats completely different than how corporations do. And it's not a shot at corporations. I have tons of friends that work at them. Tons of MBAs that are my friends. Heck, I speak for, 5 of the biggest names in the industry that are all run by MBAs. It's not that. The point is, though, is that you cannot lose focus on the fact that a small business owner must think, act, speak, and do everything completely different than a corporation, or you're done. You're done. So you look at all these innovative changes, and I just gave 3. There's hundreds of innovative changes. And the only people that look at these innovative changes as bad are the people that exist inside the industry or that respective industry. Like, there isn't a person on the planet that's going to look at Uber and go, nah, not good. It's convenient. It's all done through an app. Much easier, simplified. Nobody's going to say that's bad, except for the people within the industry, hence taxi cabs. Nobody is going to look at a Tesla as bad, except for, and to this day, countless amounts of people in the automobile industry, because it forced them to get off their butt and say, look, we better jump on this stuff now. We better invest the money now, because we're going to be toast if we don't get ahead of this electric car situation. And it's the same way using dental monitoring, and that's why I brought up this doctor in Houston. There is nobody at all whatsoever out there outside of the orthodontic industry that would look at dental monitoring and go, nope, not good. You know, I don't have to come into the office as much. Oh, that's horrible. Of course they're not going to think that. Us as patients, nobody thinks, and this cracks me up. Matter of fact, the night this lady and I met at a dental monitoring event, and it was in Houston. And for whatever reason, Houston, the dentists, orthodontists, man, they are so behind the times. They don't think they are, but they so are. And it's like when you walked into this event, it was like walking into 1980. You know, and it's the same comments. Well, our patients just, and that, by the way, and it's a podcast, an on-demand course, etc., a whole keynote presentation about the sentence, our patients, ... Because anytime I hear that, it's just like, it shows the disconnect because your patients, they're consumers, they're people. They have the same tendencies as other consumers around the country going into other practices, other businesses. They're no different. The difference is your thought process. Now, there's differences if you're blue collar, white collar. There's differences if you're maybe a millennial patient base versus maybe an older. Of course, there's differences. But the vast majority of wants and needs still tie back to the very same things, regardless of the consumer. And this whole, well, our patients want to come see us. It just cracks me up. It's hilarious that there's actual people out there that you think this. And it's not that they don't want to see you. It's not that we as patients don't like you. It's got nothing to do with it. But it has everything to do with we don't want to be inconvenienced and come in and see you when we don't have to. So if retainer checks can be eliminated, if a ton of the appointments, if I can come see you 4 times in 2 years and get a better clinical result, and that's what it's tying back to. If you show all these things to the app, any consumer, say, look, you're actually going to get more attention because we actually speak with you weekly as opposed to every 3, 4, 5 months, whatever it may be, 2, 3 months. Now we see you weekly. We communicate with you weekly, both the team and maybe even the doctor every week. You know, we have an artificial intelligence that red lights or green lights, your clear aligner behavior, if you will, your progress, that's going to tell you, hey, move on, or do you need to hold on and contact the office, or we'll reach out to you. You know, it's going to lessen the unnecessary appointments. It's going to keep Joey from having to leave practice, baseball, soccer, whatever, choir. It's going to have you, Mom, leaving work so you don't have to do that as much to pick up Joey to come to unnecessary appointments. And there's obviously tons more examples I could give, but there isn't a consumer on the planet that looks at that and goes, oh, that's a horrible idea. That's terrible. But who looks at it as a bad idea? People within the industry. Now, obviously, not all of them, but still a considerable amount. And I would say the majority still of the industry. And that's what, like, shout out to the new patient group clients, the listeners of this podcast, because I get to see going into these study clubs, traveling the world, we get to see how behind so many orthos, dentists, et cetera, really are. And most of them still live in this, all I've got to do is move teeth the best. All I have to do is place the best crown, and everything's going to work out for itself. And then when they struggle, they cannot figure out why. And they never blame themselves. That's never a thought process that even crosses their mind. And this is exactly what's going on with a dental monitoring situation with this lady orthodontist in Houston, is that inside the industry, people are bad-mouthing the fact that she puts people on dental monitoring for all the reasons I just said, as well as obviously reduced appointment times, you're more efficient, you're making more per visit, all of these things that benefit the practice as well, and again, tons of other ideas. The only people that could think it's not a good idea are people inside the industry. And there are so many things, and this is exactly ties into today's point, is that the number one success trait of billionaires is that they have coaches that come from outside their industry. Many of them trust one coach that constantly is overseeing all their interactions with all their different businesses. As long as that one coach doesn't have any or very much experience within the industry they're in. And this is a complete flip on its head of how 99% of people, both people in the corporate world, reps, employees, and small business owners and their employees look at things. You know, over the course of 10 years, I cannot tell you how many times we've dealt with the old hygienist. Well, how can you teach us anything? You've never been in dentistry. I've had my coaches give that feedback. They've said it to me. Same with it. It's not a lot, but it does happen in the ortho world with, the TCs or, well, you're not a clinical assistant. How can you teach me verbiage skills? Well, because nothing you're talking about is clinical. It's all a sales experience, psychology, hospitality, list goes on skill set. It's had nothing to do with your clinical skills. Same with the hygienist. The way you talk has nothing to do with your clinical knowledge. And the list goes on and on and on and on. Because the reason, and there's reasons, but the number one reason billionaires seek advice, almost exclusively, by the way, it's not like it's just part of the thing, their success plan. It's almost the exclusive part of the success plan. Because the last thing they want to do is wake up and be the same as everybody else. And this is why I want to tie it into no-shows and price shoppers. Because if you have a new patient no-show problem, which, by the way, if you're an orthodontist looking, by the way, if it's 8 to 12 a year, you are way less than the industry average, which is now over 4 a month, by the way, so 48 to 50. If you're a 30 new patient a month practice, the average is 4 to 5 is right around what you're going to get. Think of that. It's 48 to 60. So you've got to look at that number times your average case fee. You can't look at that number as the patient. You've got to times that by your case fee, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars of lost opportunity every year. The problem with it is that the majority of people blame the patient for no-showing. Joe, bad patient. Whether it was a virtual patient, he used a smile snap and, he's just a shopper, terrible patient. Instead of saying, hey, look, we better change our processes. We better get better, and we better figure out how to get these people to show up, because there's tons of practices that have and make a ton of money on the virtual route. And also the no-shows on the on-site. Bad patient. No, they're not. It's you. As an industry, you've created no-shows because you're the same, no matter how hard this is to hear, you're the same as the other 2 or 3 they're shopping for. And I'm going to bring this back with a little proof here in just a minute. Price shoppers, the same way. If I start my online, I see an Invisalign commercial as an example. I start my typing into Google, Invisalign in whatever, Kingwood, Texas, where I grew up. And I start, I have 15 options pull up, that's exactly what's going to happen. Pretty much everywhere you are out there, if a consumer enters in the number one most entered search term in orthodontics, Invisalign, into Google, there's going to be 15 options pull up at minimum. And that is why you're a commodity. You can throw a rock across the street and hit somebody that does it. And I search online, and I pick up the phone and call, and I decide to go in, and whatever that experience looks like. And then the TC exam, the doctor exam, the financial presentation, everybody is the same. So I think to myself as a patient, well, what the hell? I went to 3 opinions. I can't tell the difference. 2 of them, one was $7,000, one was $6,500, one was $5,200. They all said they could do the same. I'm taking the $5,200. And as a consumer, of course you should take the $5,200. Now, knowing what I know about what that may come with clinically is a different story, but that's not how the consumer thinks. The reason why they're price shopping is because everybody is the same to the consumer. They are left with no additional value proposition on why you're better clinically and why you're better non-clinically, why you're more convenient. They have no clue. So the only thing they can go by is the price. And if you're shopping for 3 t-shirts and on the surface, they're all the same, they feel the same, they look the same, they sound the same. When you put them on, they look the same, they feel the same, all that stuff. And one of them was $300, one of them was $80, and one of them was $10, and you literally couldn't tell 1 ounce of difference between any of the shirts, of course you're going to pick the $10 shirt. You'd be an idiot if you didn't. So therefore, it's on the store owner and the employees of the store to be able to sell the value of why this shirt is more expensive. Edify the unique features, it's custom made right here in the United States by the finest tailors around. Here's their background, here's their story, and obviously more. And that does not happen in 99.9% of your practices out there. Why? Your employees don't know how to sell. That's as straightforward, to the point, as blunt as I can possibly get it. They don't know how to sell. Why? They're not salespeople, yet they're now in an industry that's commoditized, so you better get it through your head that they must become salespeople, which means they must learn those skill sets. And here's why they aren't. You know, when I was at the AAO, it's amazing to see how many thousands of booths that are there, how many thousands of people that are there, all selling to a very small industry. You know, there's only, based on the statistics in the United States, some you look at and there's only about 7,000 or 8,000 of you. Some you look at and it says upwards of 10,000, 11,000. But there's not that many orthodontists. And then very few percentage of that are actually forward thinkers ahead of the game. And even fewer percentage of that are actually constantly looking at help to get better. So in the end, you're dealing with a very small percentage. But as you look around these booths, you know, and there's a lot of examples of innovation inside the orthodontic and dental industry that came from non-clinicians. They weren't started by an orthodontist. They weren't started by a dentist. It was somebody, consumer-wise, that looked at the industry and go, what the hell? You can do better than that. Let's figure that out. But when you're sitting there in an event like that, and you see the consultants there, they're all people from within inside your world. And I see it with doctors. I've seen it for years. Before I started new patient groups, still dealing with doctors, I've seen it for years. Is that when they want help, they go right to another doctor, which is fantastic if you want help clinically. If they want help and they feel like their TC needs to be trained better, as an example, or their receptionist needs to be trained better, or a better new patient experience than non-clinical experiences, they go and they find a consultant that was a TC, that was a receptionist, that was an office manager, that was a whatever, and that's who you seek help from. And this industry has been that way forever. And what's happened over the years is this regurgitation of looking inside your industry for help has created an entire industry that's the same. And when you're the same, no-shows skyrocket because there's no reason for me to show up to your practice when the other two receptionists sounded the exact same. There's no reason for me to show up to your practice if from the time I hang up to the time I'm supposed to show up, it's the standard healthcare bullcrap of auto text messages or an email or this 48 hours before I come in call that says, hey, you going to come in? Like your appointment confirmation phone calls. They're a total waste of time. How I know that is our practices don't do them, and their no-show rate, when they carry out this outside of their industry experience, it goes away. And it's less work. Because if you're a TC, and by the way, so our coaching team is a combination of people that work inside the practice combined with people that have never worked inside a practice. And that is where the beautiful marriage happens. So this is not about, oh, you should never listen to a doctor to get business help. No, of course that should be part of your plan. And just like with the billionaires, it's not that they never listen to people inside their industry. It's not that they never do, but it's minimized. It's usually minimized and narrowed down to, let's say it's a restaurant. Okay, you're going to listen to a successful chef. Of course you're going to do that. Of course you're going to pay attention to let a successful chef help you with the menu. No brainer. That's just like clinicians helping you clinically. But you're not going to go to a chef and start asking about how to speak on the phones and how to handle the experience from the customers from the time they shop to the time they call to the time they come in to the waiters talking. No. That's where you've got to find people that specialize in experience and sales and verbiage and presentation and psychology, which just simply means knowing what to say, how to say it, when to say it, how to handle complaints, how to overcome objections, how to turn negative situations on the floor into positive ones. And that's not going to come from a chef. And most of the time, it's not going to come from anybody inside the restaurant industry because they don't have those skill sets. And that's how billionaires look at it. So if you're constantly searching inside your industry, you wake up years later the same as everybody else. And let me prove this to you. If you're sitting there saying, I'm not convinced, there's an exercise I do when I'm on stage, and I've done it for years. And let's start with the TC. Let's start backwards with a financial presentation. In our financial presentation training, inside that on-demand course, there's about 15 mistakes, one of the modules inside the course. I think it's like 15. It could be 12. It could be more. I think it's 15. The 15 mistakes made when you present money. And they're made by 99.9% of TCs out there. 99.9% of whoever presents money inside whatever type of practice you are. And these mistakes are also taught by industry consultants because they don't know sales. They don't know verbiage, psychology, presentation. They don't know them. What they know is what they learned working inside the practice. That's it. From maybe whatever consultant came in when they were employed, whatever the doctor told them, however they were trained by maybe a senior TC before they took over that role, whatever it may be. They learned what they know from inside the practice. And that's the news, is that's not sales. That's not hospitality. That's not customer service. It's not psychology. It's not presentation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's none of those. So you have people actively teaching the 15 mistakes that I was just referring to. And when I'm on stage, I'll do this. Okay, 3 TCs, come on up. Okay, TC1, I'm sitting down with you. The doctor's left. It's time to present money. You know, whatever. It's a braces case. It's $6,000. It's an Invisalign case. It's $6,000. Whatever it is, I'll throw different examples at them. And they start going. And then I'll have the next TC go. And then I'll have the next TC go. And while they're going, my keynote up on the big screens is blank. There's nothing there. And then I'll go, okay, thanks, appreciate it, audience. Let's give them a clap. You know, good job, good job. And then I hit the button. And I pull up a screen that says exactly what they all just said, almost to the letter. And the point of that exercise is I knew exactly how money was going to be presented before it was even presented. And that's in doing hundreds of events, seeing hundreds upon hundreds of TCs, probably more by now. And occasionally you'll get one that does a little bit different, but even when they do it different, the message is still the same. And all these mistakes, apathy, price anchoring, the list goes on and on. Sticker shock, on and on. They make. Then as you move a little bit forward to the appointment, you look at the TC exam and you say, TC, okay, I'm sitting down. Let's begin the exam. Go. Then the second one, then the third one. You say, okay, great job. Good job. Then I hit the screen and I pull it up, and every single thing on my screen was exactly, almost to the letter, what they all said in their exam. And this is hard for some of you out there to really grasp, because there's this idea in healthcare that you're different. I'm different. I'm unique. I have my own. And while that is true, every business is unique. Every business is also the same. I don't care if you're a plumber, a lawyer, us, you. Every business has the same headaches. And every business is in hospitality. Whatever you do, orthodontics, food, everything is secondary to what your real job is, and that's hospitality, customer service, sales. Because if you're not over the top, unexpectedly awesome in those things, you don't ever get to do what it is your product or service actually is, because nobody will say yes to you, especially at a higher price. Then as you move further into upfront the appointment, I'll say to the audience, hey, doctors, hey, team, I just hung up the new patient call. My appointment's in 3 days. What happens? Who sends out automated text reminders? Raise your hand. Everyone raises their hand. Who does email reminders? Almost everyone raises their hand. Who does appointment confirmation calls? Almost everybody raises their hand. So far, working backwards front, if you're a consumer that, again, knows nothing clinically, outside of whatever research is done online, and even then, they still know nothing clinically. At this point in time, there is absolutely zero value proposition for any of these practices. Why? They're all doing it the same. Then you get to the new patient call, which, by the way, is the power of persuasion. We're going to do a whole podcast about that. Have some cool podcasts coming up. Cognitive tunneling, the 4 mental hacks of success, the power of pre versus persuasion. I got some really cool ones. I think they're going to be this season. Not sure, so I don't want to guarantee it, but they are coming, and some really cool topics. And then you say, okay, receptionist, come on up. What does my first appointment look like? What should I expect? Receptionist 1, 2, 3, they all go. I pull up my keynote, exact same verbiage to the letter. Okay, receptionist, I have an 18-year-old daughter or a 16-year-old son, whatever it may be. They're interested in Invisalign. Go. Receptionist 1, then 2, then 3 goes. All say the exact same thing. You're the same because the advice you seek is from people inside your industry. That is why the number one most successful trait, or the number one success trait, a better way of saying it, of billionaires, is they are scared out of their mind of ending up the same as everybody else. And they know that if they are constantly going inside their own industry for people that have been in that industry for 5, 10, 15 plus years, you look at it, or they look at it, through a very different, tainted set of lenses, as opposed to a fresh perspective that really almost looks at it more from a customer perspective. I have said that from years. You want to grow your business? Go have your customers train you how you should do it. That will be a podcast someday as well. The number one way to grow your company, I don't care what type of company you have, I don't care what industry your business is in. You want to grow? Ask your customers. Because they have a unique set of lenses that you don't. It's the same way as us. When we had our mastermind group in Wine Country, California, relatively recently, it was so fun. And one of the things we did afterwards is, what do you like best about New Pacing Group? Just ask your customers. And the feedback of the things that they love about us was great. And it's not just about surveys. I'm talking more like, hey, customer, what aggravates you the most when you call this place? Well, here are 4 things. Okay, bam. You as a business owner, you better go fix those 4 things, because it doesn't just aggravate them. It also aggravates the people that may buy from you. And all those all that whole appointment journey that I just walked through backwards to the front. And there's other examples too. Okay, I'm walking through the door. What happens? Everybody does it the same way. Yet you've all convinced yourself you're so unique. You're not. And then the ones that actually are, you go and badmouth, like this orthodontist in Houston. By looking at an innovative technology, in this case in dental monitoring, and like I said, today's not about dental monitoring, but it's the perfect example of such a larger picture of how the only people that could ever look at dental monitoring as a bad thing are people inside the industry. And when a practice really does stand out through convenience, uniqueness, innovative, forward-thinking technologies, doing clear aligners at the highest level, those are the ones that people that are living 20 years ago go and badmouth, just like the taxi cab industry does to Uber. Just like the automobile industry, many of the executives does to Elon Musk and Tesla. And there's countless examples of this. And we all view this world through our own set of unique lenses. But you have to understand, without a doubt, is that the most unique set of lenses that you could ever find are people looking at your business from an outside your industry perspective that can come in and basically say every single thing you've been taught in your career from a non-clinical perspective is crap. Because that's what these billionaires want to have happen to their businesses. They want these coaches to come in and go, what the hell are you doing? And a lot of times, the most obvious things, as a pilot, when people get stressed, some of the most obvious things that are staring you right in the face, you overlook. Because your mind starts narrowing things down when you get stressed. Less and less and less and less. And as a pilot, that's how a lot of pilots get killed, is that the most obvious things are staring them right in the face. I watch this show, Air Disasters. Many of you know out there that I fly planes. And this air disaster shows I study because, one, it just shows how the innovation humans have had over the years to make sure that bad accidents in the past that happened never happen again. That's why air travel's become so safe. But when you look on there, and there are exceptions, but when you look from a private pilot standpoint and you look from a commercial airline standpoint, almost always the crash is caused by the pilot. Rarely, and it does happen, of course, did something actually go wrong with the plane. And when you're in difficult situations, weather, and you're in clouds, you can't see anything. Dark at night, you can't see anything, almost whether it's cloudy or not. Whatever, turbulence while you're landing, you've got people talking in your ear, you're communicating with air traffic control, you're reading instruments, you're doing all these things. It's very easy to let the stress, and you start narrowing down, and you go from reading all the instruments that you need to read down to 2. You don't even know what's happening, and the next thing you know, you're dead. And the most obvious thing staring you right in the face, you no longer could see. And this happens to us as business owners all the time. The most obvious things that are staring you right in the face. You have a no-show problem? Those are fixable. We can fix that. I guarantee that we can fix it. It's one of the few guarantees in life that I'll give is that we'll guarantee that you reduce your no-shows 30% minimum, or we'll give you all your money back. And I say that because if you have the focus and you're looking at the most obvious ways to grow your business, fix those. If you have 30 new patient no-shows a year, okay, cut those to 15 next year. Multiply that times $6,000 average case. Do the math. Some of the most obvious things stare you right in the face, and it is very difficult for people inside your industry to fix it because they are missing those same exact obvious things. And it ends up being a blind teaching the blind situation. And again, this is not you never seek advice from anybody in your industry. No, of course not. Of course you do. But that has to be lessened And the majority of the advice you seek has to be from people that come from outside your world. Now, the key part of this is that it obviously helps if that outside your industry help you're getting knows how to apply that help inside your industry. But it's not required. There are plenty of people that come into, like Kevin O'Leary's business example is a Shark Tank guy. There are plenty of people that come into, he's a big wine guy, sells wine, bottles, memberships, things like that. Well, when he's getting advice, he's not going to people from the wine industry. He is getting that advice, but when he says, look, I want real marketing, I want to learn real sales, he's going to real marketing and salespeople. And he's taking that advice. He goes, okay, how do we apply it to the wine industry? And that is something so missing inside the healthcare bubble. And this same message you're hearing from the same regurgitated industry consultants that have been around forever, their message is the exact same as it was 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And yet they're still hired. It just blows me away. We're about to redo our phone course again for the third time in 5 years. Why? Industry changes, consumer changes. We're constantly looking in the mirror going, you know what? We can do better. You know what we taught 3 years ago, there's actually a better way now. Same way with our financial presentation university course. Our new one just launched. It's on the website. Same thing, Podcast 20, get 20% off. You go on that. When you go through it, we've changed that countless times. The brand new one, and I'm sure in a few more years, we'll gut it, do it all again. Is it work? Yeah, but the customer, you all deserve that. If somebody's teaching you today what they taught practices 5, 10 years ago, that's a problem. And there's foundational hospitality and certain things. There's foundational things that worked 20 years ago that will work for the next 100 years. But the majority of it always has to be tweaked. And if you're seeking help and you're going inside your industry and that's where the majority of your help is coming from, especially non-clinically, there's no way you're maximizing your success. It isn't possible because those same people are missing the same things you are that are the most obvious ways to make sure that you grow $100,000 or more every single year for the rest of your life, whether the economy's great or the economy's bad. This all, in so many ways, everybody, it's not rocket science. But at the same time, it does require looking in the mirror and saying, what am I missing? What can I do better? What is my team missing? Because I trust Susie, my TC. She's in a sales role. And this is something what I'm about to say. A long time ago, when we were closing the partnership with Invisalign and I was going to be a speaker for them and we were working on bigger things at the time, we're sitting in California and, a lot of the bigger people, Frank Quinn, shout out to you. He's moved on to Lightforce. Matter of fact, a lot of you who don't know this, Frank Quinn did leave Align Technology. He's with Lightforce now. We're sitting in a room, Frank, there's a lot of people in there. Matt Miller, who actually took over. Shout out, Matt. Props to you. Matt Miller took over the role of Frank Quinn when Frank Quinn left. I'm sitting in there, and I made a comment. And I said, the biggest problem you have as a company, and this goes for really any company out there that has a product, what I'm about to say is true, is that every single day you trust employees inside the practice environment to sell for you that you yourself would never hire on your own sales force in a million years. And that line really resonated with the room, as it should all of you out there. Because whether you're Invisalign wanting their product to be sold, whether you're Lightforce, as an example, wanting their product to be sold, whether you're Spark, whether you're Shine, whatever, anybody out there that has products, goods, services that are entrusted to the practice environment to sell, quote unquote, You're trusting people, and you as a business owner trust your people to sell you whatever product it is. Braces, a lot, whatever you do, whatever treatment modality you prescribe to that patient. You're in the same boat, is that your success is placed in the hands of people that would not be hired on anybody's sales force, anybody's hospitality force, anybody's customer service force, in any business, in any industry in the world. Now, some of you, and it's a rarity, take our hiring advice, and your office manager, your TC, your receptionist, they don't come from your world. That's the other piece about billionaires and this looking outside your industry, is that they are constantly hiring people that have no industry experience. And that in itself, between the coaches and the help, seeking outside help, and hiring people from outside your industry, and this is going to be a podcast in itself as well, very passionate about this, is that the non-clinical roles inside your practice should be held by non-clinical in your industry people. They should be held by people that have been in hospitality, been sales trained. They're not afraid of role playing because they come from a world outside of healthcare where you're going to role play. That's how you get better. You imagine an athlete going, nope, not going to practice. Well, that's how most businesses are run. There's no practice. It's just crazy to me, which is another trait billionaires have in their companies is practice, practice, practice. And oh, by the way, I know you're an expert at it now because you've practiced it 1,000 times. Guess what? You're going to practice it again. That concept, repetitively training people over and over again, is so hard. So hard to get people to commit to because it all sounds good. It all sounds like, oh yeah, it makes sense. But then when they do it and you get the pushback, it is so hard. And this doctor's out there, again, it's not a criticism, but you have to think, your receptionist, how people are greeted when they walk through the door, receptionists, how they're talked to on the phone, the marketing you do, the new patient experience. Even your exam as a doctor, it's sales. Of course, it's somewhat clinical, but inevitably it's sales, hospitality, rapport, presentation, TC, same way. Pending treatment follow-up is not clinical. OBS is not clinical. After you say, hey, Joey, come back and see me in 8 months, they go into your OBS. Everything else after that is a non-clinical skill set. It's sales, it's experience, it's organization. Yet so many of you want to go inside your practice and get help from the same people that are missing the obvious as you. Take these success traits of billionaires, apply them to your life, apply them to your business, your practice. Seek advice outside your industry. Hire from outside your industry. And you will be blown away at the results you can achieve, and you will be sick to your stomach about the countless lost opportunities you've had your whole career when that growth happens and you realize, wow, we should have been doing this for years. I didn't know these opportunities I'm losing existed. And you'll know they exist when you go outside your bubble and seek advice from people that are going to challenge you. I hope everybody enjoyed today. Best of luck to you until next time. Happy 4th of July. I hope everybody enjoyed their 4th. We'll have another great podcast coming next month. A couple great events I'm going to go speak at next month. We'll update you on all of that. Shout out, I have Jeffrey Hines, Jep Pascal, and Matt Josie coming down from the New Patient Group family. Their little mini mastermind session at my house in Houston. They'll be coming down, I guess, the weekend of the 15th this month. And hope everybody enjoyed the podcast. Until next time, be great. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.